In this video, we cover the USA Strategic Crypto Reserve announced by President Trump yesterday. Most expected a strategic Bitcoin reserve, but instead we learned XRP, Solana, ADA or Cardano, and ETH will also join Bitcoin as part of the United States Crypto Strategic Reserve. Why did Trump choose these coins? A lot of people out there are speculating. Will there be more added? We saw hundreds of billions of dollars flow back in the crypto market overnight on this news. But will these God candles last? Or is this a bull trap? We have a special guest on the show tonight as well to talk about the charts. He is widely known and regarded in the industry as one of the best technical analysts and chartists in the crypto space. Welcome Eric Krown on the show today as well. All of that and more coming to you guys on this very special show. Welcome back. Happy Monday, everybody. And some financial advice from my favorite financial advisor, Rupert. Guys, go buy Bitcoin, guys. You gotta go buy Bitcoin. It is the best asset in the world, and it's gonna lead the strategic reserve. You think that most reserves are gonna be XRP and Cardano? No, it's gonna be Bitcoin, guys. Go buy Bitcoin and hodl that shit. Okay, thanks, Rupert. Thank you very much. Let's get into it. So, as we see here on Truth Social, Mr. President Trump made a post. The first post was this: a U.S. crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, SOL, and ADA. I will make sure the U.S. is the crypto capital of the world, making America great again. And then he goes on to post this saying, and obviously Bitcoin and ETH as other valuable cryptocurrencies. But he had forgotten the most important part of the strategic reserve. And obviously Bitcoin and ETH as other valuable cryptocurrencies will be the heart of the reserve. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, a lot of people are going out there and saying, ooh, there's going to be other valuable cryptocurrencies added to the... No, guys. He just forgot to mention Bitcoin and Ethereum as part of the crypto strategic reserve because people were going, what about Bitcoin? They were asking probably in the comments. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Obviously, the two most valuable ones are going to be in there as well. So that's what pumped the markets and sent them crazy. So now let's listen to Trump before he was actually sworn in.
Your embracing of crypto, very different from the previous administration. Strategic Petroleum Reserve-like for crypto?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to do something great with crypto because we don't want China or anybody else, and not just China, but others are embracing it, and we want to be the head. We're going to be ahead of AI. We're going to be way ahead of AI, and we've got to produce tremendous amounts of electricity. You know that it's...
And let's just look at some of the other strategic reserves that America has right now and saying how large, how much money could potentially be coming into the market. So for context, there's currently $772 billion in the gold reserve. There's $32 billion in the strategic oil reserve. And there should be a lot more. The reason that it's low right now is because Biden's administration was they sold more of the oil in the strategic reserve, which they're not supposed to do. It's supposed to be a strategic reserve in case of emergencies or something. They sold it to help offset the oil cost so they could make the cost of the inflation rate come down during the high inflation from the money printing, right? So that's actually higher. I don't know what the number is pre-Biden selling it off, but I imagine it was much, much higher. And then IMF or strategic drawing rights, 180 billion. So if crypto gets a similar path, and I don't see why it wouldn't. Everyone makes conservative numbers saying, like Aaron here saying, if this crypto gets a fraction of these allocations, it's off to Valhalla. And I would argue if it gets a fraction of 32 billion, it's not going to make a dent. But if it gets 32 billion, it will definitely make a dent. And I think that over time, and we'll talk about some of these proposals here. We have proposals from Senator Cynthia Lummis, proposals from Michael Saylor, proposals from RFK, and how they kind of differ a little bit. But that'll be at least, much more than this coming in. I'm talking about like these kind of numbers here, right? If it comes anything close to what Michael Saylor or RFK are saying, wow. Now, this is the most conservative one, right? And this is the one that seems most likely right now to kind of pass. Senator Cynthia Lummis, remember, she wants to buy 200,000 Bitcoins annually for 5 years and hold for at least 20 years so that the United States, in addition to the 200,000 having already, will have about 1 million Bitcoin or 1/20th, 5% of the supply. And I think that's low. I think it's very low, me personally. Currently, the US government holds, like we said, 200,000 Bitcoin, 56,000 ETH, 122 million in Tether, etc. Most of this comes from seized assets, likely to be passed over to the US Treasury Department. Now, this I've seen as a rumor floating around. I've made a post about it, right? As a rumor. This is David Bailey from the Bitcoin conference saying China is now working double time to stand up their own strategic Bitcoin reserve. They've been holding closed door meetings on the topic since the election. Again, speculation, take it for what it's worth, but come on. Now that Trump has made this official, every other country in the world must be looking at this. You want to front run the United States. This is where small countries like El Salvador, but other ones now too should be paying attention. If you want to change the future of your country, you don't wait until America's already bought 1 million or 5 million Bitcoin. You go do it now, right now. You go do it and you front run these hundreds of billions of dollars are going to come into Bitcoin this year. Because my gut feeling, educated guess, if you will, says that this will kick off this year. Now, we'll talk more about the timeline later in the video, but this year. Remember, this was RFK at Bitcoin Nashville.
I will sign another executive order directing the U.S. Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoins.
So RFK, who is definitely in there, right? I think I even saw a clip of Senator Cynthia Lummis or someone talking about the fact that Lummis and RFK were talking about this. So so RFK is definitely in there right now, right? And then Michael Saylor comes along and says this.
Is that you wouldn't want the Saudis to buy it first, or the Russians or the Chinese or the Europeans. And there's only room for one nation state to buy up 20% of the network. And obviously, I think it should be the United States. I think it will be the United States. It's a way for us to enrich ourselves and emerge as a creditor nation in a matter of a decade. It's also a way for us to ensure that we're the economic leaders in cyberspace and the digital economy for the next 100 years. And if we do that, every one of our allies will follow us, and then all of our enemies will end up having to buy into the network once it passes 10 or 20 million a coin, and they will enrich us.
Bam, and enrich you, Saylor. You will probably like surpass Elon Musk's wealth if he doesn't go buy a bunch soon. If all of it, and so this is also, guys, this is also one of the most interesting things about something like Bitcoin as network effect. It makes sense for people who then buy Bitcoin to go become ambassadors and evangelicals for crypto, for Bitcoin. So, you know, we believe that the United States will buy anywhere between 1 to 5 million Bitcoin over the course of the next 5 years or so. If that happens, I don't even think that we'll go into a crypto bear market. I think that we'll just keep running. Like, as we have that, and that would likely lead to this crypto Bitcoin super cycle that people talk about, in my opinion. And guys, if you're finding the video valuable so far and you appreciate this content, do me a favor, destroy the like button. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chasse. Welcome. It's great to have you guys here. It would mean a lot to me if you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get all your notifications as these videos are made and oftentimes time sensitive. And now let's get back into it. And David Sachs, the United States crypto and AI czar, says, President Trump has announced a crypto strategic reserve consisting of Bitcoin and other top cryptocurrencies. This is consistent with his week 1 executive order, 14178. President Trump keeps his promises to make the U.S. crypto capital of the world. More to come at the summit, which is being this coming Friday, I believe the 7th. Yes, this Friday the 7th. I also find it interesting that that these announcements seem to have been made on the weekend. You know, when the U.S. the financial markets are closed. This White House crypto summit will likely conclude after the markets are closed. And so whatever is decided from there, if we get news, could affect the crypto markets while the traditional markets have the weekend to catch up. Raoul Powell comes over here and says, the US government is literally telling you they're going to kickstart alt season by buying your bags. Something I never thought on my bingo card. You know, one thing that we have to remember, well, I'll get into this in a minute, right? But that's Raoul Powell from Real Vision. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I've talked about guys like Larry Fink and President Trump very much intentionally not just mentioning Bitcoin when they talk, but talking about crypto. Larry Fink doesn't come on and say Bitcoin this, Bitcoin. He says crypto this, crypto that, right? And same with Trump. Obviously, now we get to see that it's not just the Bitcoin strategic reserve, it's the crypto strategic reserve, at least from Trump's tweet so far is what we've seen. Promises made, promises kept, says Pentoshi. Ross was freed. The war on crypto has ended. Crypto strategic reserves. Wars are ended or trying to be ended. Government waste cut down. IRS cut down. Transparency. Criminals removed from the streets. Free speech protected. Hate him or love him. This is what we asked for and promised. Those promises have been kept. He is a flawed person, no doubt, but things could have been far worse. As Bullrun Gravano says over here, steps to create the greatest bull run of all time. Create a crypto reserve. Check. Enforce zero capital gains on tax on crypto. Man, I sure hope so. Remove all income tax would be fantastic. Abolish IRS. Now, remember, I made that video last week covering why abolishing the IRS and also severely reducing taxes doesn't seem feasible quite yet. But it's still just barely 5 weeks in administration, and there's more new crazy stuff happening every single day, right? So that is obviously something that I think that would like to be, would be the goal, but they need to find a way to be able to do that. And I don't think that anything that's been announced so far, at least not on its own, will solve the problem of taxes, but at least I like the fact that that would be their goal. And maybe they'll get there somehow, fingers crossed. All right, guys. Now let's get into the conspiracy of the week. So all of crypto Twitter is asking, why were these cryptos chosen? I mean, Cardano, XRP, and Solana, and Ethereum. I mean, we knew Bitcoin, but why these other ones? Like, did they have a discussion about this? Or did they just poll 10,000 Uber drivers and call it a day? Right? And Adam Cochran over here says, well, each of them has a large investor in Trump's circle or on the crypto committee. Each arranged meetings with Trump. Each has centralized entity that owns a shit ton of tokens and can direct funding. Ta-da, transparency. Stay tuned, guys, for my opinion toward the end. And I just thought this was a funny video. This is how everyone's feeling right now. This is from Kakashi saying Solana's back to 170. Me and my buddies with a combined of $17 in our wallet.
We are back, baby. We are fucking back. We're back. Classic. We are back. We are back.
After total fear and greed down to the 10 of extreme fear, my guess is when the fear and greed index updates today, it's going to be at chill. It's going to be at chill. And even Peter Schiff, I couldn't believe this. He wanted to debate me on gold versus Bitcoin like 2 weeks ago, but he wanted to do it way past my bedtime, so I couldn't do it. And Peter says, this is kind of crazy. He says, I get the rationale for Bitcoin reserve. I don't agree with it, but I get it. We have a gold reserve. Bitcoin is digital gold, which is better than analog gold. What? Peter, did you just admit what you wanted to debate me was? Peter literally wanted to debate me on if Bitcoin was better than gold. And he just admits right here that it is better than gold. So let's create a Bitcoin reserve too. But what's the rationale for XRP reserve? Why the hell would we need that? I mean, look, I like Peter, and I actually agree with him on this post. I agree that Bitcoin is better than gold. And I also agree that in a strategic reserve, it should be something like Bitcoin that is a digital version, a better version of gold, or a direct commodity like oil or something like that. For the rest of the video, keep this in mind because I believe that people are getting a little confused with kind of the difference between a strategic reserve and maybe what might be allocated toward the sovereign wealth fund. Now remember, the sovereign wealth fund is probably going to be $1 trillion or multi-trillion dollar investment fund. So while the rest of this video remains relevant, in my opinion, the things I'm about to lay out even are probably more likely, and I'll break them down one by one, but more likely to fit into a sovereign wealth fund than the strategic crypto reserve. But let's get into why these altcoins were picked for the strategic altcoin reserve. Now, people are saying it's because there was people in the inner circle and Brad Garlinghouse and his lawyer here with Trump for dinner, and that Ripple Labs was a big donor to the Republican and Democratic Party, but in reality, it was a bipartisan investment, although Brad Garlinghouse did publicly endorse Kamala. Dumb. XRP up 20% today on the news. Was even more before. And then people say, oh, well, Charles has been rubbing arms and with all of the Trump inner circle. And he says this in
2025 will also be devoted to the political process.
And so Charles has been spending a lot of time with the politicians, donating a lot of money, likely, et cetera, right? And Cardano pumped to like $1.10 today or whatever. More than that, $1.13. Everyone's focused on this word other, but they got it out of context. I told you in the beginning. Everyone was wondering, what's the next thing to be added? Wow, we know it's going to be XRP. We know it's going to be Solana. We know it's going to be ETH and ADA. And of course, Bitcoin. But no. People took this out of context. Just chill and then build something that worth going into something like Reserve or the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And then they'll be considered. James Seyfarth from Bloomberg Intelligence. He says his colleague, so both, if you guys don't know, James and Eric work at Bloomberg, and their job is just ETFs. And they were very popular before the Bitcoin ETF got approved, right? And everyone that we even had James on the show, great guy. So he says, Eric and I took a look at the filings for spot crypto ETFs. We're putting out relatively high odds of approval across the board, mainly focused on Litecoin, Solana, XRP, and Dogecoin for now. Here's a table with the odds and some other details. So you can see there's really not any odds of a Cardano ETF being approved anytime soon. I don't know why. I mean, even Polkadot is in here, which I think that like one could argue that, I don't know, they're like the same, except for Cardano has more of a cult following. Why? Because Gavin Wood, who wrote all the Solidity language, most smart contract language for Ethereum, Charles got fired or kicked out of Ethereum really early. But the difference is Charles made a YouTube channel and Gavin Wood went into a closet and started developing nonstop without seeing the light of day for like a decade. And now you have Cardano, Charles invited to the White House, being mentioned by the president, when president would never mention Polkadot, probably just like because Charles built a cult-like community through his YouTube channel. It's the significance and importance of founders being public and building a cult. You have to remember that's very important in crypto. You have fundamentals and you have pumpamentals. And Cardano is just a research project, basically. There's not a lot of adoption. I'm a VC. I make these videos. I know nobody building on Cardano. Yet, it's still one of the top cryptos in the world, top 5. And as far as US coins are concerned, top 6 if it's not. Very powerful. So you can see the odds of these ETFs getting approved. Litecoin at 90%, Solana at 70% in 2025. XRP at 65% and Dogecoin at 75%. Wow, Dogecoin would be crazy. So why were these coins chosen? Well, if you ask me, it's simply because they're the top 5 USA coins. It just seems so obvious to me. Plus ETH and Bitcoin, right? So you have the top 3 USA altcoins and the 2 that are the largest market cap with already existing ETFs, which make the most sense, right? So you have XRP, Solana, and Cardano. You obviously exclude the stablecoin USDC, and boom, you take the top 5. Literally, it's the exact same. Remember, I talked to you guys, if you guys know about Commonwealth and how they did the top 5 crypto coins. So the only difference between what Commonwealth has done and what was just announced from Trump, Commonwealth has Bitcoin, Commonwealth has Ethereum, Commonwealth top 5 includes XRP, it includes Solana. The only difference is it does not include Cardano and it includes BNB. Why? Because it's not a top 5 USA index. It's a top 5 crypto index. And in my opinion, folks, there's no other rhyme or reason why that these coins were mentioned by Trump directly other than the top USA coins with market cap. So some people are speculating, well, what about the top 50 coin base? No, I don't think so. I don't think that these are all going to be added to the US crypto strategic reserve. It doesn't make sense to me. Remember, this was what Trump has done so far is he initiated an executive order to study these things and to try to figure out if we can pass them into law. This still has a long way to go. Just because Trump announces Cardano, XRP, Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin will be the strategic reserve doesn't mean it doesn't have to go through Congress first and pass the House and pass the Senate and then be signed by the president. So this still will take time. And maybe Congress doesn't agree with the altcoins. Maybe it just says Bitcoin, or maybe it does. I don't know. We know World LibertyFi, the Trump plural crypto DeFi company ran by Donald Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Barron Trump. These are the holdings. And one of the biggest altcoins that they hold is Link. Now, it's not a huge amount, but it's still a pretty big amount of the portfolio. But we can see that from US coins, Link would be the next biggest holding. So my thoughts are this. My thought is this. Do we see Link being added to the strategic reserve? Well, one could argue on this case from the necessity of a reserve that maybe they do one day add it there. Why? Because if what Link set out to achieve actually happens, where there's global adoption from all these interconnected blockchains, where Link is the messaging and value pathway and bridge between those blockchains, then every country will need it to transact internationally on chain, and it will be necessary. And so in that case, if you need it to transact as a country, then you might want to buy it real cheap before everyone else does and keep it in your reserve so that you can use it from there. That might make sense. So you can use it as a reserve or something you might need in times of an emergency. So Link could, even more than Cardano. Like, I don't know why Cardano would make it into a reserve. It makes more sense if it was made into a sovereign wealth fund, right? And the sovereign wealth fund, I think, could invest in a top 50 index and whatever. And I can see a lot of lobbying and these kind of things being done, everyone coming to Washington in order to potentially get those things back into the sovereign wealth fund. But I think the more crypto that are added to strategic reserve are going to be harder to pass through Congress. And as you guys can see here, the token landscape, when you see different categories like Made in USA, or is it held by World Liberty Financial, or the Grayscale Trust, or the Coinbase 50 Index, there's one token that really matches all of these, and that's Link. Still a very bullish Link. You guys know I made a video on why I was so bullish on Link. I will leave a link for the Link video or a tile at the end of this video. You can check it out. I think it's a great video to watch. It's my $1 million bet on Link, and still very bullish on that in the long term. You can see Sergey Nazarov of Chainlink meeting with all Trump's advisors over here in all these pictures, rubbing shoulders with the right people. And, the video that I made was Chainlink at $7. It went all the way up recently to, 23 or something like that, and back down to 14 the other day, and pumping along with everything else, up just as much as Solana at 14% on the day. Another USA crypto going up. All right, guys, now time to mention the channel partners of the show, L-Bank. If you're new to crypto and you need a centralized exchange that doesn't require KYC and want to know all of your sensitive information, L-Bank is a really good exchange. It's been around for a very long time. And if you use my link in the description below, You guys can get some sweet bonuses if you deposit $1,000. You guys get 500 USD trading bonus. If you deposit $500, you get 100 USD trading deposit. And if you deposit 100, you get $40 US trading deposit. It's quick to sign up. It's easy to use. Most of the major cryptocurrencies that we talked about today, or all of them we talked about today, are traded there. You can trade long. You can go short with leverage. You guys can do a spot, whatever you feel like. Bank does it all. And also, guys, due to the increased awareness of crypto and everybody out there trying to attack each other, make sure that you are using a VPN. And our other channel sponsors are NordVPN. Make sure that you guys use the link in the description below. It comes out to something like $99 for 2 years of online protection, threat protection, awareness, these kind of things. Also, I use NordVPN all the time when I'm on the road to say that I'm in countries that I'm not, so I can get things like streaming services or access to websites that block me otherwise, access to crypto services that block me otherwise, etc., etc. Plus, they have threat protection to protect you from accessing bad sites that leave you vulnerable to take your crypto. And if you use the link below, you also get 4 extra months for free. It's a no-brainer. Go do it, guys. Now, I was wondering if the markets could sustain this news. I mean, after all, it's just the news, right? And we saw the stock market's pumping on Friday. Why? Because as you can see from Investopedia, is inflation finally cooling again? The Fed's favorite gauge says so. The PCE, the pricing consumption expenditure, another way to measure inflation, actually came down. We got reports of it being lower on Friday, which sent the traditional markets up about 3% or 2%, 2 to 3%, I forget, on Friday, creating the stock market to rally. Markets potentially looking better. This is what the Kobolesi had to say about that. Lastly, interest rates are down now 60 basis points in 6 weeks as Doge cuts ramp up. Even as inflation rebounded, rates are falling in anticipation of less deficit spending. Doge is shifting the US economy. All right. This is what they set out to do, literally this exact same thing. And there's a little bit of conspiracy or speculation here, saying also worth noting that the NASDAQ 100 rallied sharply into the close on Friday. It jumped 2% in under 3 hours with minimal bullish headlines. Did someone know this was coming? We expect tech stocks to gap higher on the crypto reserve news when futures open. So, I don't know. We saw this, like insider trading happens. It's rampant around everywhere. We know Nancy Pelosi's created it, et cetera, et cetera. We know that people can't keep secrets. So a good thing to keep us grounded here, ladies and gentlemen, is what Gum says over here, just to make sure that we don't get lost in euphoria in today's move. Remember that the higher we go pre-summit before March 7th, the higher expectations will be. This is very likely a sell the news event unless they announce significant buybacks on BTC and alts mentioned. Right. So this was just a post from the president sending the markets way, way higher. Let's not forget about everything we've been talking about, right? And we'll know more once we see what happens when the tariffs come into effect and how those may or may not affect things like CPI and inflation and what the Fed has the power to do when it comes down to cutting rates and stuff. And this is what I talked about earlier, guys, what Ali says over here. Even if Trump sends an executive order, it still needs to be passed. It's going to take time. It'll take a lot of time for that. So this is why we have to keep our eyes glued to the news, eyes glued to the macro developments, eyes glued on what's happening. And we can't say, oh, good. Like, this isn't even news to us, right? We knew that there was going to be eventually a strategic reserve. The fact that the altcoins are in there, that's new, right? But we must not forget, and we must not get complacent, and we must be careful. So what am I doing right now? I'm doing nothing. My bets are placed. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm not opening leverage longs. I'm not opening shorts. I'm spotting and chilling because it does seem to me like this was just a pump on some news about speculation of the future, the direction we might head, but it does seem like it's going to take a little while to get there, and we still have a bunch of uncertainty ahead. Okay, guys, and now on the show, we're going to bring on our guest, Eric Krown from Krown's Crypto Cave. I will put his links in the description below so that if you want to go check him out, his channel or his X account, which I have pulled up on the screen here, you can go do that. He is widely renowned as one of the best traders in the crypto space. So let's invite Eric onto the show and listen to what he has to say about the Trump announcement, as well as what the short, medium, and long-term price of Bitcoin look like. Eric, thanks for coming on the show, my man. How are you doing?
It's beautiful to be here. It's great to meet your community, and good to meet you as well, man. Thanks for having me.
You're one of the best TA guys in the entire space, and
sometimes not so much.
But I think only the real guys would admit that. You hear a lot of guys that are on TA always happen to they're always right? No matter what happens, they're always right. Even if they're bearish last week and that pumps, they somehow knew it was coming. It did seem like everyone was pretty bearish last week, and then all of a sudden, boom, over the weekend, National Crypto Strategic Reserve. As a TA guy, how do you adjust this and how do you input this into the whole analysis?
Yeah, so as kind of like a pure chartist, which has its drawbacks, of course, anytime I see a move that was from a news event, especially like a tweet, I'm always going to be very, very skeptical of that, because those sort of moves don't have a good track history of taking hold and producing real reversals. Now, that, of course, would fly in the face of an actual strategic reserve being enacted, but I don't think that's what's happening here. The US government is very far away from buying crypto, for example. They might keep the seized Bitcoin that they already have and make that a strategic reserve, but I don't know if that's as big of a deal. And of course, when we have an event coming up, I believe on Friday this week for the crypto summit, anytime I see an event, I always think that the move leading into it is going to get undone. I do agree that on the higher term timeframe, especially last week, higher term timeframes, more medium term as well, Bitcoin could easily come down, could easily come down more. And I can show some charts that suggest that that's probably the higher probability play right now. However, I do think that obviously needs to be differentiated between the short-term scenario, or I should say the short-term situation here, where Bitcoin obviously had a pump, but this is the exact area that you would also be expecting for a trap. So I'm very, very skeptical of this move right now.
I'd love to see the charts, what you were referring to.
Okay, there we go. There's a nice little charts. Let's start off on the higher term time frame look. There are several things that do make me consider Bitcoin as not necessarily putting the low on this move just yet. Might not come down that much lower, to be fair, but we do see, for the first time in a very long time, bearish divergence on the monthly RSI. Now, what the hell is that? What does that mean? Bitcoin is losing momentum on the monthly time scale from high to high. So from the March 2024 highs to our current highs right here. These typically are good signals for monthly pullbacks, which obviously we've gotten a little bit of already. But that is also going to be coupled with something else that is, concerning to me in the more short term, which is the monthly stochastic oscillator, another momentum oscillator. So we have two different ones now suggesting about the same thing. When I look at this, I think to myself, I need to be more defensive towards another washout to the downside. Could that be 70,000 or 74,000? Sure, whatever. But it tells me that until we see these things kind of reverted, I would still be avoiding like long-term long positions, which is what I think most people are interested in. And in fact, I'll give your community here just probably the most simple way to look at this. And this is the hash ribbons indicator down here. This is actually a fundamentally based indicator. So it goes off of miner profitability, and it has been very consistent throughout the history of Bitcoin with these blue buy signals that you see on the chart right here. These have correlated typically to very, 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 very important higher lows for Bitcoin, especially in bull markets, which I do still think that the greater picture, like the long-term picture, is still probably bullish. But until we get this next blue buy signal, I wouldn't be risking myself for, long-term long positions. If you're trading, if you're investing, sure, invest every, like 15% downside move, something like that, but different game. So that's kind of where I'm standing at right now. Until I see this signal, I'm not going to be entertaining the possibility that this particular move is the one that's going to take us to heaven and beyond. And of course, I think a lot of people also know this as well, is in the short term, going back on over here to CME, there is a pretty massive gap on price action. In fact, Bitcoin's rally up yesterday pretty much hit exactly right there. And now we have another gap to the downside around 85 to 86,000 bucks. So these traditionally get filled as well. There's not necessarily a time component on that, but at some point I would be thinking at least a move down there in the most bullish of scenarios.
Did we fill the previous one that was much lower?
This one right here, 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that that's filled.
Yeah, because I know people were saying that we probably would. Okay, so now we have a new one that opened over the weekend, right?
Yeah, so that's the one
then-
that we're looking at right here at 85.
Okay, and what would it touch if you were to close this gap?
Okay, so first, understand that when we're looking at CME, we're looking at futures contracts, which inherently have a premium versus spot contracts, which is what we typically look at, right? So the numbers that I'm about to quote here, they're going to be lower for spot, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
And the top of Friday was what exactly was it? 85,720. So, I'd be thinking anywhere around there. Let's call it $86,000. What does that mean for spot? Maybe 85. Something like that. And then I'd be mindful of the bounce attempt from there. The most bullish scenario I can think of is coming back down there, having a strong response, and then back up. If you are looking at this in the short term, I don't think that there's an advantage to FOMOing in right now, even if you're like the biggest bull of all time.
Right. Now, a lot of people were last week calling for 70,000. I don't know if you were ever saying that we're going 70,000, but do you think that's on the cards?
Yeah, I have said that, and I still think that it's in the cards, especially as long as Bitcoin's below $100,000. I'll just explain this very, very briefly. This is what I call the jewel indicator, and there's a very specific signal here that has been extremely well documented over the past 6 years for Bitcoin. This signal is in the red circle right here, where we see the blue/cyan portion of this oscillator at very, very low levels, anywhere below 25, for example, alongside the green background. So when we've seen that signal in the past, we can see that this has been a really good signal of a sort of, I guess, more medium-term bounce for Bitcoin. However, all of these signals, except for one, look the exact same. What do I mean by that? Well, the key point is Bitcoin likes to, come back down somewhere around that region, maybe slightly higher, maybe slightly lower. But from there, then that's the move. That's the big one that I think most people are looking for. And we actually saw a perfect example of this in 2023. Very similar, in my opinion, to kind of what's going on right now as well. Happens right here, big pump up. Okay, beautiful, comes back down, makes a slightly new low, but that was the low. And by the way, on this exact iteration as well, that is where we had in combination a little bit later, the hash ribbons signal over here. So if I see something like that, then I'm very, very interested. But until then, if Bitcoin were to come back down to the current low, that would be low 80s. And, if it makes a slightly new low, I would say somewhere around 74. But it's really not a humongous differential between where the low is at right now at about 78.5 versus 74 in the grand scheme of things when we're talking about, $20,000 ranges. So yeah.
Do you take it day by day, or do you kind of have some sort of long-term price forecast for the cycle?
Realistically, I take things day by day as a trader, but of course I do have a more long-term view as well in the direction where I think things are going. And, do I think that this cycle is over? I think it's very unlikely that this cycle is over, at least right now. Yes, Bitcoin found a major top. Yes, it's been going sideways for a while, but the longer that Bitcoin hangs here, the more and more that I'm going to be convicted that Bitcoin, likely does have at least another try to the upside. Whether that produces a high at 120, 140, 160, I'm agnostic to. If any one of those are hit, I'd be very happy. I think most people should be quite happy as well. But yeah, as far as the 4-year cycle goes, yes, this current cycle, we have seen a few components that are certainly different than the previous 3, but we haven't seen this cycle broken just yet, just because we don't have the information just yet. So, it would be stupid of me to say that something is broken that has not been proven to be fully broken just yet. So that's kind of the way that I think. Generally, I'm going to be leaning towards the upside in this asset, especially, when the current administration is so favorable, I suppose, to crypto, and it really does seem that they are serious about that. So, yeah, to me, that's significant.
Cool. Eric, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. We will let the viewers know. We'll put all your links in the show description as well. If they want to come follow you guys or follow you for, actually, just what do you do? Daily videos, or how often are your videos?
Yeah, I'm actually doing daily videos going over more short-term price action. Yes, sometimes I'll put in some higher-term timeframe stuff, but it's mostly short-term if people are interested in that.
Perfect. We'll put the links in the description below. Thanks,
Amazing.
Eric.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up today. I appreciate your time. If you got a lot of value of the video, do me a favor, destroy a like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.